Hey guys, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve some problems on trig equations. I'm going to be making two videos for this segment, and this is going to be video number 1. And the two videos that I'll be making will be based upon the difficulty of the problems. So the first problem in this entire video is going to focus on easy level 1 problems. So I have cosine of x plus 1 equals negative cosine of x, and you have to solve it. Now keep in mind that you have your unit circle either memorized or have it out on the table, because we will be using it a lot in both of these videos. So the first thing I'm going to do in this problem is I'm going to bring the negative cosine onto the left hand side. So I'm going to add it to both sides, and I get cosine of x plus 1 plus cosine of x equals 0. I get 2 cosine of x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to solve for cosine of x, so I get negative 1, and cosine of x equals negative 1/2. Now, this is not my answer. I have to find the angle at which cosine of x equals negative 1/2. So that's why you need to memorize or have your unit circle out. So these are the two different angle positions where cosine of x equals negative 1/2. The first one is going to be 2 over 3 pi, and the second one is going to be 4 over 3 pi. This is equal to theta. So my answer is going to be 2/3 pi and 4/3 pi. Moving on. Alright, the next problem is going to be secant x equals square root of 3 over 3. This is supposed to be 2 root 3, my bad. So what do we know about secant? Well, we know that secant of x is equal to 1 over the cosine of x. So what we need to do is to solve for cosine of x. So cosine of x is going to be equal to 1 over the secant of x, which is going to be 1 over 2 root 3 over 3. Now remember the trick, keep, change, flip. So we are going to keep the 1, so cosine of x is going to be equal to 1, keep, change, flip. So it's going to be 3 over 2 root 3. Now remember that we cannot have a root at the denominator, so we gotta multiply this by root 3 times root 3, which gives us 3 root 3 over root 3 times root 3 gives you 3, and 3 times 2 gives you 6. And we can simplify this further, which gives us root 3 over 2. Now, this is not your answer. This is just saying that cosine of x is equal to root 3 over 2. We need to find the appropriate angle at which cosine of x equals root 3 over 2. So, on your unit circle, pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. These two are the angles where cosine of x will be equal to root 3 over 2. Alright, moving on. The next problem is going to be a little bit difficult, but as you can see, the level of difficulty is going up. So we are going to have 2 cosine square x plus cosine of x plus 1, minus 1 equals 0. Let me just confirm that. 2 cosine square x plus cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so that works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into x and y. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2x squared plus x minus 1, which equals 0. Now what I want you two guys to do is to pause the video and try to factor this equation that we have. Alright, I have already factored this equation out, and what I get is in terms of this, cosine theta is going to be equal to 1/2 and -1. So now we have to find the angles where cosine theta equals -1/2 and -1. So theta is going to be equal to pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, and pi. Alright, boom, that's my answer. Moving on. Alright, the next problem, and let's see if we have one more. Yep, the last problem is going to be, alright, sine, oops, let me go back. So it's going to be sine of 2x, sine 2x minus cosine of x equals 0. Now for this problem, you really need to know your trig identities, and if you don't, then you're basically screwed. So pay attention. Sine 2x is a double angle formula, and sine of 2x just equals 2 sine x cosine x minus cosine x, which equals 0. Now we need to factor out a cosine because it is common in both of these terms. So if I factor this out, oops, wait, did I just erase it? Guys, I'm going to rewrite it because for some reason it got all wiped out. So let me rewrite the problem again. So we have sine 2x minus cosine of x equals 0, and I just told you that sine of 2x equals 2 sine x times cosine x minus cosine x equals 0. And I told you that cosine of x is common, so we need to factor out a cosine. So cosine of x will go outside, and we will have 2 sine x minus 1, which equals 0. Now we basically have the entire equation done. All that we need to do now is to break this down into 2 parts. The first part is going to be cosine of x is equal to 0, and the second part is going to be 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0, and solve for sine x. 2 sine x equals 1, sine of x is going to be equal to 1/2, and now just find the theta, where sine of x equals 1/2. If you do that, you should get pi over 6, and 5 pi over 6. Boom. There you go. And by the way, cosine of x, so the theta for this is just going to be pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Alright, that's it for this video.